Scaling is one of the hardest things in Google Ads. And if you as an e-commerce business owner or someone handling ads for an e-commerce brand struggled with that before and you don't know how to take your campaigns to the next level, then this video is exactly for you, because I'm showing you with a live example of what we have been doing in an account with not an explosive growth, but rather like ongoing continuous improvement, which is what you can apply to your brand right away. And you may see even faster results, or you may see just like this ongoing improvement week after week, month after month, that is so important if you really want to take things to the next level. So without any further ado, let's jump right into this account right here. And this client of ours here at Cartlift is selling car parts, car related items. And they are a pretty successful business, making many millions of dollars per year. And as you can see here, what I've opened up over there is our Google Ads performance of the past 90 days. So over the past 90 days, we've spent about $117,000. We made back around $525,000, and we had a total ROAS, which is pretty strong, of 4.46. And I showed you this 90-day example, not because that is when we started managing it, because we have been at it for a longer time. We have seen multiple of these ongoing improvements. In the beginning, they were a bit more explosive. Now they're a bit more, consistent and like incremental, so to speak. But in this time frame, there were a ton of changes. So as you can see here, our top campaigns, the one here, for example, that generated the most revenue, we have already paused. And the one that generated the second most revenue, we have paused as well. Nonetheless, we're now better off with our current setup when it comes to both ROAS and when you extrapolate it to the month with also the amount of revenue that we're making. So what is the thing that we want to do here first? Well, the first thing that you want to do when you want to understand how you can scale things to the next level is you want to identify whether you are at your cap. Now, what does that mean? Many brands out there think that any niche, any product can be scaled to like millions of dollars a month. And quite frankly, many products can, right? But there are niches, there are products, there are categories where this is very hardly possible. So if you have, for example, a PMAX campaign or a shopping campaign, but specifically PMAX, like these guys right here, before we took over, everything one large PMAX basically. If this runs on max conversion value, no cap at all, super high daily budget, but yet you're struggling to spend your daily budget, then there can be numerous reasons for it, right? It could be that, as I said, you actually reach the limit of your niche. It doesn't happen that often, but it may happen every now and then. Second of all, your products might be totally unoptimized in Merchant Center, etc., right? Next up, you might have issues with your page that cause your quality score to drop, or that simply stops you from having high conversions. And even if you run at max conversions, max conversion value, and you're not spending your daily budget and you meet all the previous criteria, there is still the chance that in a different setup, you would actually still be able to make more revenue and get more sales with a higher ROAS, which then feeds the algorithm again. So first step, identify if you have a growth problem truly because of your entire setup or because some of your campaigns are capped. Then the second step, like in our case here, is reorganization. So what have we done? Well, as I said, those two here were the two main campaigns. One of them we have launched, the other one has been there previously already, and it was like this one overarching PMAX campaign. You want to reorganize based on the performance that you've seen. So in our case, the PMAX campaign that they had has frankly been a pure shopping campaign anyway, right? So we lacked the flexibility and ease of use of a shopping campaign and the ease of accessing search terms. But at the same time, the PMAX campaign, as I said, was only shopping anyway. So at some point we decided, let's give it a try and reorganize this into a shopping campaign, or actually multiple shopping campaigns. And let's cut down on the PMAX a little bit. And this has worked fairly well after we have applied, thousands of negative keywords. We have tried multiple ways to organize the shopping campaign. I will talk more about that in a second, how we actually organize them for best performance. And we still, as you can see here, use one performance max campaign. But the point is that if you have this single, or let's even say 2 or 3 gigantic PMAX campaigns, nothing else, it is very difficult from my experience to scale to the maximum level. You would think that it's easy to scale that way, right? Because if you have a PMAX campaign, no cap, high budget, in theory, it should spend as much as possible. But what I found, if you do that, first of all, either you run into ROAS problems and it makes it unscalable because you don't want to scale if you're super unprofitable, or simply because PMax isn't really focusing on all products and giving each product an equal shot, it will not spend more money, and maybe you have like a $3,000 per day budget and it only spends $1,000 a day. So how did we reorganize this then in the end? Well, I came up with numerous ways to group the products, right? So these shopping campaigns that I've blurred here for obvious reasons, they are doing a bunch of things. We are, for example, structuring products by seasonality. As I said, we have a car brand and some of these products sell more in the summer versus the winter, etc. I structured them by price range and margins. Of course, there is some benefit in focusing more on high margin products, but generally they have a fairly similar price range, so this is not the most effective structure in our specific case. There are other cases where this helps a lot. Then I structured by the car brand. Some of these parts are sold for specific car brands only. So one natural way of grouping them is by the car brand. Then we have best performers, right? Then we have products that perform very well on Amazon, which is another gigantic channel for this specific brand. With all these different structures, with all these different ways of structuring the product in custom labels, custom label 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in Merchant Center, I was then able to group them into multiple shopping campaigns. And what you see here is this filter of more than $1,000 because I've run numerous additional tests as well at some point throughout this whole, let's say, journey, right? Where basically, even though most of that was even before that, because you can see here there's only 2.7 thousand roughly that has been spent outside of the active campaigns. But basically, during this entire time frame, I've tested numerous setups of how to structure campaigns. Because if you have thousands of SKUs, it's very tough to just say advertise everything or come up with like random ways to test, right? Like bucket 1, 2, 3, where sometimes even targeting different categories doesn't make too much sense. So I've structured by all the things that I just mentioned before, and actually many more of them, and then came up with these individual shopping campaigns. And as you can see here, there are some that are performing extremely well, like this one here, 71,000, now our most important shopping and most important active campaign at the moment, right? Then we have, for example, we have this shopping campaign here performing pretty well too. We have this very new PMax campaign that is up and coming. We have this highly profitable shopping campaign. And by the way, all of this is non-brand traffic. This is the only campaign here that has brand, and it also has non-brand in there because of some, a bunch of reasons. You can see here that recently the performance has dropped quite a bit, but basically this is a campaign that is like 80% branded, 20% unbranded. So our non-brand performance is really strong. And the point here is that with this structure, I identified ways that are performing way better than others, right? So specifically this relatively new shopping campaign right here, this is a structure where we go with specific product that meet a criteria for the specific brand context. And this is like a double layer of best performers, as well as certain brands, as well as a small seasonality adjustment, right? We also had shopping campaigns just for desktop versus just for mobile, because we identified that for a very long time period, desktop computers were vastly outperforming mobiles with this particular brand, and PMax didn't really account for that, right? So when I looked under the hood of, let's say, this PMax campaign, I was seeing like a ROAS of 6 for computers and like 2.5 for mobile, something like that, right? I don't remember the exact numbers. And I was like, okay, in theory, Google should take, Google should look at all these things already with auto bidding and bid accordingly, but they didn't really, right? So we were still carrying mobile over and over and over. And at some point I said, let's break these things apart. And I had this shopping, this mobile only and this desktop only. And this worked extremely well as well, until at some point, after several months, they were sort of approaching each other again, and I decided that we want to change the strategy. But my point here is that if you run, shopping and PMax campaigns, oh yeah, perfect. No, I don't want to do this right now. So if you run shopping and PMax campaigns, which most of you guys probably do, then it is important that, first of all, you don't just consolidate everything into a handful of campaigns, like 1, 2 campaigns, especially 1, 2 big fat PMax campaigns. And second of all, that you constantly question your structure and change and adjust it, right? So before I came in here, all they had was segmenting by categories and sometimes by car brand, not by bestseller, performance, Amazon, price range, several other factors. Another one that I didn't actually even mention here so far is products that received, for example, 0 clicks, product that were very expensive. So we got revenue, we got sales, but they were vastly unprofitable. Products that were selling very well, but got very little traffic, indicating that possibly it makes sense to spend more money or try to spend more money on them, right? So do a deep analysis of your performance. If you have PMAX campaigns, of course, that's more tricky. We are using a PMAX script to look under the hood a bit more. This has been an extremely tedious task here. I've spent, I don't know how many hours structuring the entire product range. And one thing that I'm doing now as well, that's also important, is I'm reassessing on a monthly or every 45 days basis. So I look at the entire product catalog, right? I browse through all of them. I have like an exported Google Sheet. And then I look like, okay, did anything change here? Are there new and emerging best performers? Are there products that got 400 clicks but no sale? Are there products that are getting no impressions at all? Are there new products? Because these guys are actually adding new SKUs like on a weekly basis, crunching all these numbers in the table and then post-processing them in the Google Ads account, so to speak. I know that this is all a bit all over the place, right? There wasn't a clear step-by-step structure here because all of these things are somewhat unrelated, but all of them make sense and are important at the same time, if that makes sense. So what we're doing here is when you have an account like that, right, with a fairly, coherent set of products, there is no huge difference in like product categories, etc. And when you have thousands of SKUs, I can tell you it's all about organization and finding the perfect account setup. It's not so much about individual copywriting. That is important with like accounts with few products or, where you're doing super special things with like search ads, etc., or display, demand gen, etc. It's not so much about like fine-tuning the product feed all the time because we have a great feed now in place. It doesn't make too much sense to go down that route any further. But in a case like that, it's all about, merchant center labeling, custom labels, how to organize which campaigns, when to change them, bids, budget, strategies, etc. And this is a great example that basically every account is super different, right? We have accounts where 90% of our work is ad copywriting, getting great assets done, trying brand new campaigns in a totally different angle. And then we have an account like that where we're doing very similar things, but always with a tweak, right? Can we organize products in a different way? We have tried a ton of search ads here as well. So far, didn't really work out, unfortunately. So we stick now to shopping and PMAX, at least for the near future, and it's definitely improving all the time now. And this is also what I urge you to do, especially if you have a store like that. Don't just have the setup that you've tried first and sort of stick with it and be married to it, but rather constantly challenge it and see what you can do. And if that is something that sounds a bit too complex or you don't know where to start, right? You're like, hey, I have thousands of SKUs as well, or maybe I just have a handful, but I have no idea how to scale them because when I try to spend more money, everything falls apart. And if that's actually you, then check the links in the description where you can talk to me and we can discuss how we here at Cartlift can help you with your e-commerce brand to take it to the next level in both volume and possibly ROAS at the same time, because there are numerous creative ways that this can be done. And we have done it for numerous companies out there, brands, 6, 7, 8-figure brands that thought they reached their invisible ceiling, and then we managed to give them another 30, 50, 100, 200% in performance, especially volume. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to check the link in the description. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please leave a like and please subscribe if you want to see more Google Ads and performance marketing content for e-commerce. And with that being said, I really look forward to see you in the next video again. Thank you very much and bye-bye.